Let's do a deep dive into Texas and why this is their best chance to win the national championship since 2005. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching Adapt and Respond, thank you for joining us here. We talk college football year round. If that is something you're into, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like this video, and answer the question in the comments below. Do you believe that Texas will win the national championship in 2025? I submit to you, this is their best chance to do it since then, as they've got what I think is their best quarterback since almighty Vince Young. I'm going to unpack this. I'm going to talk about the offense, going to talk about the defense, going to talk about what's at stake. But I think it's important to remember the catalyst for Texas being good, not even there anymore. I'm also going to take this opportunity to remind you, we got an audio podcast on Apple and Spotify. And if you are kind enough to go to Apple and Spotify and leave us a 5-star review, I will send you one of these stickers and a personal handwritten thank you note from me, just saying thanks, because it means that much to me that you took some time, you filled out the 5-star reviews at Apple and Spotify, and then you hit the link in the description below and gave me an address where I can send you a sticker. I believe that we got to talk about 2025 Texas by beginning with 2021 Texas, honestly. Because I'm looking at this from the standpoint of what's different from 5-7 Texas to back-to-back CFP semifinalists, Big 12 champion Texas. And really, do you get Arch Manning if not for one guy? So after being selected in the 7th round by the Miami Dolphins, I think Quinn Ewers became a symbol of what is holding Texas back. That's wrong, flat out. I think that is wrong, because I would actually say to you, Quinn Ewers is the man who allows for what was once a joke to be absolutely true in 3 words. Texas is back. Because they well and truly are. It is a true statement now. It is not a joke. The year Ewers arrived, Texas, the year before Ewers arrived, Texas went 5-7. And Steve Sarkisian was the offensive play caller. Pete Wachowski was the defensive play caller. And that hasn't changed. What did was the quarterback, who had left early, reclassified to get to Ohio State so he could take advantage of NIL money, sat for a year, didn't even throw a football in earnest at Ohio State, transfers back to Texas. The next year, Ewers took what was once a 5-win team and made it an 8-win team. The next year after that, Ewers took Texas to Tuscaloosa and got a 10-point win against Nick Saban's Alabama, and basically got the starting quarterback at Alabama, Jalen Milroe, benched. Won the Big 12 title, made the college football playoff semifinal. Fell short in their game against Washington, but this is the best Texas team that we had seen since 2009. So then you get to move to the SEC, year 1. And you could see how that could go for new members, particularly Oklahoma and Texas, who went in very different directions. Oklahoma expected to contend. It did not. 6-7. Best win is against that same Alabama team that lost to Vandy as the number 1 ranked team in the country. Meanwhile, Quinn Ewers led Texas to the SEC championship in their year 1. And the blemishes on his record for last year are 2 losses to Georgia and 1 loss to the defending national champion, Ohio State Buckeyes. Remember that in the last 2 years, he threw for at least 3,000 yards, 3,400 yards, and at least 20 touchdowns. I mean, that's getting it done on the 40 acres. And I think when we go look back, we'll say it's fair that not only did he make Texas back, Texas is back real, I don't think they land Arch Manning if he doesn't. Remember, Arch was the number one ranked quarterback, number one ranked player in the 2023 class. If Texas wins the next national championship, right, 2025, I think it's going to be because Quinn Ewers set the table for him to do it. That, I think, should be Quinn Ewers' legacy if Texas can pay all this off. And I get it, right? It's a lot for a guy who hasn't done much, but glory be, this guy, Arch, is just different. Best Longhorns quarterback that we've seen since Vince Young. And last year, he played well. 939 yards passing and a 300-yard passing performance against an SEC foe, even if it's Mississippi State, even if it's Mississippi State that got beat by Toledo at home. And he rushed for 108 yards. He was very good throwing the ball deep down the field, and he could outrun people to the end zone. You don't see that very often in any quarterback. Like if Marcel Reed could pass like Arch Manning, we'd probably be talking about him like that at A&M, but we're not. There are other guys that are as athletic, but not as precise. There are other guys that are probably more precise, but they're not as athletic. So what we do know is if he's the guy, we're going to find out because he's got a scarlet and gray opportunity in front of him August 31st. We're going to draw a lot of conclusions from Texas at Ohio State because that's their toughest challenge short of Georgia this season. As a matter of fact, their two toughest games this season at Georgia, at Ohio State. But he's going to have help. The running back room is replenished, and it's good. C.J. Baxter's back, but he hasn't carried a ball in earnest since January 1, 2024. Quintravion Wisener rushed for 1,000 yards last year. You expect those to be your two backs that you split the carries between, but C.J. Baxter is him. Quintravion Wisener rose up. I expect that Ryan Wingo will continue to develop alongside DeAndre Moore. Anthony Hill is still a monster out there. Trey Moore's back on the defensive end spot. Colin Simmons is back at defensive end spot. Malik Muhammad's back in the secondary. They're going to be stout. Michael Taft, they're going to miss him. They really are. Jody Barron, they're going to miss him. But I think the guy they're going to miss the most, or where it might show up the most, is going to be on the offensive line. Kelvin Banks showed up to Texas and started right away and then never left. He got injured last year, which meant Trevor Goolsby had to make a couple of starts. But I think, while he's not Kevin Banks, he can do things like Kelvin Banks. I don't know if he can do them consistently. At 6'7", 314 pounds, though, I think he ought to be able to get it done. He ought to get things handled. Again, the schedule ain't doing Texas that many favors. I mean, they got just 3 SEC games at DKR this season. Again, they go to Georgia, and they go to Ohio State in non-con. We don't know if Sam Houston's going to be any good. It's Phil Longo's year 1. San Jose State might put up something like a fight with Ken Niumatalolo, fling it offense. But UTEP is UTEP. We just don't expect them to be challenged more than maybe 4 times this year, if Oklahoma's good, right? We're also going to find out week to week how Arch plays and what little he has to say about it. Because I think you're going to see ups and downs from this guy. I think you're going to see great play. I think you're going to see jaw-dropping play. I also think he's going to make some mistakes that you would not expect an experienced quarterback to make. And that is where I think the coaching is going to have to show up. Because the way that I look at Arch Manning is to know that I'm going to have a guy who wants to say all the right things when it's time, but does not like jumping into the spotlight. We've seen this. Doesn't really use his Twitter account. Didn't get one until he committed to Texas. Held out of the EA Sports College Football 25, not because he wanted more money, because the money was not important to him, so he just wasn't going to do it and think it was a big deal. And then he had the right representation. EA Sports makes an individual contract for him. He signs it. Red Bull is sponsoring him. They only sponsor 2 college football players, right? Jeremiah Smith, who could win the Heisman Trophy, Arch Manning, who could win the Heisman Trophy, and the 2, I think, most popular players in the sport right now that Shedeur Sanders is in the NFL. People forget the only person to outsell Shedeur Sanders in jerseys while a player in college is Caitlin Clark. He was a phenomenon. We'll see if that translates to other players. Like Travis Hunter was a phenomenon, but Shedeur Sanders was the guy that kids most wanted to wear a jersey from, right? Arch is going to have that effect on players. And I think that is also going to help Texas, like everything else helps Texas in that way. The phrase is everybody in Texas grows up wanting to play at Texas, right? Just like everybody wants to drive Ferrari. I remember having Jalen Milroe on this show coming out of Katie Tompkins. And at the time, he was committed to Texas. Mike Yurcich was not yet the offensive coordinator. And I said to him, dog, you really want to go to Texas? Like, you know what time it is. Why you want to go to Texas? That's all I ever wanted to do, RJ. I wanted to play quarterback at Texas. Okay. And then Mike Yurcich basically said, you're not my guy. And Dick Saban said, well, you're mine. So, dude, you want to come on down? And Jalen Milroe turned in the kind of performances that if he was consistent, win the Heisman Trophy in 2023 or 2024. And that is me saying that alongside of Jaden Daniels, because I think he could have put up Jaden Daniels type numbers if he was consistent. It's not hard for me to see a 3,800, 4,000 yard passer, 1,000 yard rusher in Jalen Milroe, just putting the ball on the floor, throwing the ball to other people. You're not going to be able to do much with that. I mean, we're also talking about a Jaden Daniels, who I believe is the only player in FBS to have 12,000 yards passing and 4,000 yards rushing. Ridiculous. Also played a lot of football. And that's where Arch is going to show, right? The more football you play at the quarterback position, the better off you're going to be. This is why you've seen great seasons from 6-year players, why people are high on Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt, because he's going into 6 years. Why Tyler Shuck went the second round this year to the Saints. He had a good year at Louisville as a 7th-year quarterback. Dylan Gabriel comes back for a 6th year at Oregon after getting a 7th round grade at Oklahoma, and as a Heisman finalist gets drafted in the 3rd round. I think experience is the one thing you can't train. You have to just go get it. And he's going to get it against really good teams. Now, Ohio State is going to be in a spot where they also have to play a stud 5-star who has not started for them at quarterback. So which one of those guys gets taken care of best and which defense picks the other one up best is going to show. Because I think both of those quarterbacks are going to make turnovers. I think they're going to throw the ball to the other team or put the ball on the floor. How do they adapt and what breaks go one way or another? Because it can be that sharp. It can be that close. The best player on this team for Texas has to be Arch Manning for them to win the national championship. I don't think there's any getting around that. I don't think you can get a 2,700-yard passing, 600-yard rushing performance this season out of Arch and expect to contend for a championship. I think you're going to have to be closer to Jaden Daniel numbers. I think you're going to see a guy that Sark's not going to ask to run the ball as often, but might need to. We'll see. If the run game is good, though, it could look a lot like 2020 Alabama. 2020 Alabama, Mac Jones doesn't get enough credit because he had, Quetzalcoatlus outside in Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith, the Slim Reaper. He had Najee Harris in the backfield. One of the other things that you need to remember is Steve Sarkisian very much wants to have a 1,000-yard back every year. He's very proud of that. So if the backs are going to get touches, the backs are going to get carries, and if it becomes more CJ than more Quinn Travion, that's okay. Defensively, they're going to be balanced. That 4-2-5 that Kwiatkowski runs is fun. Anthony Hill ought to be coming downhill like Harold Perkins. I mentioned the defensive line is, I think, going to be pretty good at edge. Trey Moore moving inside. Malik Muhammad can be more of a ball hawk, but Arch has got to be the best player on your team. Ryan Wingo has to pop. He has to go. He has to be a solid number 2, if not number 1 for you. DeAndre Moore needs to be able to go. He's got to be a solid number 1, if not number 2 for you. Again, I see the offense building. I don't see the offense coming out of the gates firing. The defense is going to need to, because the offense might not have it all, especially when you go to the shoe. It's going to be an intimidating atmosphere. You're not going to be able to hear a damn thing. That is played during the day ain't going to matter that much because, well, Buckeye fans will show up. They ain't going to be happy about no noon kickoff, but they're going to be there. And going into Columbus is tough. Even for an SEC team that made the playoffs, just ask Tennessee how that went. Texas fans would be right to say, hey, we're a better football team than Tennessee was. Yeah, you're right. But I've also seen Penn State go in there and not come out with a W. Like the only blue blood program, and Texas isn't one, but the only blue blood program that showed up to hand Ohio State its head the last few years has been Michigan. Anybody else going in there, it's been tough, but that's what home atmosphere is supposed to be. If Arch throws for 3 bills, 4 touchdowns, rushes for 60, 70 yards, and they win this game, cancel Christmas, because they ought to go win the national championship. They ought to beat Georgia. They ought to beat Oklahoma. They could go 16-0. It's there for them, right? I don't see it going another way. If he's that lights out against Matt Patricia's defense, with Caleb Downs on the other side, with Arvell Reese really making strides, hearing really great things about him, Larry Johnson's defensive line, knowing what you have in Jeremiah Smith, being able to take that away. But that's the other thing that Texas was very good about last year. They took Jeremiah Smith away, but that's why you got Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis and Mylan Graham and Quincy Porter. They can just keep throwing bodies at you. In that way, it's like the Union versus the Confederacy. Confederacy was a better army with a much better strategist. But the Union had more people. And if I got more guys I could just platoon in, you're not going to be able to keep up. I'm going to wear you out. And if Ohio State gets to a spot where they get a 2-score lead, I expect C.J. Donaldson and James People to just be banging and banging and banging on that defensive line, getting to that second level until something pops, and then you can put this game away. Arch can bring you back, though. That's what explosive offenses can do. That's what explosive offenses generally do. They bring you back. How explosive this offense is going to be, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't begin to tell you. But I would not be shocked to see 40 points a game. I really wouldn't, especially knowing that the rest of your non-con includes Sam Houston, who was playing FCS football like 4 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. San Jose State, who's not been a perennial G6 power and, might win 7-8 games this year. UTEP, who's figuring it out. Maybe Malachi Nelson's the starter at quarterback. Maybe. And then it's, again, can you go to Sanford and get a win? Can you beat Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl? And then what's the rest of your league doing? Because that league's tough. And as schedules go, this is not, it's not easy, but it ain't the toughest thing I've seen either. Like Mississippi State's got a gauntlet run for themselves. Nobody goes into Sanford and wins. That's the other thing. The last time that Georgia lost a football game at Sanford, we've seen a different presidential administration, and we've sat through a literal plague. It's 2019. The last time that Texas beat Georgia, 2019, Sugar Bowl. Famously, Sam Ehlinger says, we're back, and Georgia's like, all right, cool. And Tom Herman grabs his nose because he understands, no, we're not. We beat a team that's got half of it. They're not really in this. But it's Sugar Bowl win. Sugar Bowl win. And the last 2 times that they played, they lost. Now, it's closer in the game at Texas, but that game was at Texas. Will it be that close at Sanford? I don't know. Like Georgia Tech would tell y'all, we've been there. We got close. 8 overtimes. Is that something that I expect to see and hear from this game? No. But I do expect Texas to win 11 games. 11 games is going to get them into the playoff. Will it get them into the SEC championship? We'll see, right? Will they win the SEC championship? Until somebody shows me that they can do that, not named Alabama or Georgia, no. But if they're going to do it, now's the time.